Today, we're looking at a black ink by Wancher, Tenmoku Black. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, there's timestamps down below so that you can skip around to the parts you're most interested in, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. You can also follow me over on Instagram, and if you're new here and like fountain pen inks, I would invite you to subscribe. I do a new ink review daily. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Kaweco Brass Sport with a broad nib. I wrote with it for a day and used it to take the notes for this video. I used 3 papers to standardize in some of my writing samples: Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. There are additional writing samples that'll come later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I have this ink in bottle form, and I haven't really shown the bottles, but their bottles look like this. They look like little jam jars. Really not the greatest, because you see, they're so shallow. They're not horrible. They work perfectly fine. I would have liked a friendlier bottle, but in the end, it's not horrible. To keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. That smudge is all user error because I was moving the paper around and had moist hands. The extra fine is slightly lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade, 12 seconds to dry. The medium is darker than the extra fine, same tone as the stub, no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, 17 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show no real color variation. We didn't expect it, and we didn't get it. Tomoe River. No bleeding, normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. It's coming across lighter on camera, but it's the same tone in person. The medium is definitely darker than the extra fine or the stub. The medium has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. 39 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it, and we didn't get it. And Rhodia. No bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub. The extra fine has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 8 seconds to dry. The medium's definitely darker than the extra fine, same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, 28 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it, and we didn't get it. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the right is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. We do see a line across the bottom where it really got in there immediately, but the rest of that black ink pushed its way up and got darker as it moved up. The one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. The line on the bottom is much darker, much more permanent in there, and has been able to seep into this filter paper quite quick. And the rest of that black pushed its way up. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page and how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before I test it. Looking at the highlighter, I would not use this in a note-taking situation if I was the kind of person that went back and highlighted my notes. Before we go over and look at the water, I want to point out the amount of sheen that you're able to see in this, and it's ridiculous. There's a ton of sheen that's coming through, but none of that sheen actually does come through in the writing, which is another reason I don't really trust ink swabs to tell me about color. Now, water is lifting some ink, but not a whole lot of ink. It's really only taking the most surface area Just like on the second chromatography, that black has really gotten in there and is staying. And it's showing in the pen flush where it's still very much there, very much not moving. 1/3 bleach solution, though, does, with only 30 seconds, completely remove this from the paper. Just go back, rinse your pen with water so that you don't rust your metal bits. As far as viscosity or flow, for the inks I've tested, I've found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Wancher Original Tenmoku Black has a viscosity of 2.5, making it not just normal, but average. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples. Now for the inks I've tested, I found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Wancher Original Tenmoku Black has an average dry time of 20 seconds, putting it on the high side of normal, but still normal. Instead of finding inks that look like Wancher's Original Tenmoku Black, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. And with many blacks, you can choose just about any color to go well with it. I wanted to put it with a nice green like Birmingham Pen Company's Frick Part Fern Hollow Creek. The second writing sample is done on moleskin, 16-pound Mead notebook, and a composition notebook like science class. Let's take a look at this on moleskin notebooks. Now, they're not known for doing especially well with fountain pen or any liquid inks. There are plenty of bleed spots that occur. The good news on these bleed spots is they're not touching the page underneath. They're not stopping you from using the back of the page or the next page, but they're creating so much show through that you couldn't use the back, or I couldn't comfortably. Medium has feathering. Not ridiculous, out of control feathering based on what this notebook would be used for. This is not for taking long drawn out serious notes, but jotting an idea down to move on. So it wouldn't stop that, but it does have feathering that occurs. It has no spread, halo, sheen, or shade. The extra fine is much lighter than the medium. The extra fine has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade, and 5 seconds to dry. The scrubby shows no color variation. We didn't expect it, and we didn't get it. How about composition notebooks? We have no bleeding. That's a transfer. We have no bleeding. We have plenty of ghosting, lots of ghosting. The medium at the top has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade. It's performing really well here. The extra fine is a little lighter than the medium. The extra fine has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade, 5 seconds to dry. The scrubby shows no color variation. We didn't get any color variation. And let's go after the Mead notebook. Mead notebook does have some bleeding that's occurring. Now it's bleeding deeper in, but it's not coming through the page. But it is going deep into the page. But it does mean that you probably couldn't use the back of the page. I couldn't. That's an up to you thing. But it did really well here. The medium had no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and no shade. The extra fine, while it's a little bit lighter than the medium, has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and no shade. I'm just seeing some feathers that are occurring on the KU in the Tenmoku. So it's really, for how cheap this paper is, this is doing spectacular. The extra fine took 2 seconds to dry. The scrubby showed no color variation, and we didn't get any, and that is all that I have for the writing sample. So what do I think of Wancher's Tenmoku Black? This is a very dark, perfect black ink. It performs very well, it's very well behaved, and it has the added benefit of every pen I've put it into, it makes it feel just a little bit smoother. So for people looking for that super smooth writing experience, it's not just the nib that you have to get, it's the right ink and paper with it. This is a very good ink. So what pen and nib would give the best writing experience with this ink? While it is always very dark, it does seem to be a little bit darker in the medium nibs for whatever reason, so take that for what it's worth. If you've enjoyed this video and made it this far, I'd appreciate a thumbs up, and if you didn't like it, give me a thumbs down and tell me why. Thanks for watching.